And I saw the emails you sent, and I figured we'll just answer those on this call. But I don't know if you've changed what you thought about, or if yeah, like if anything new came up.
Went through, printed off all the, and I'm just going through and making a checklist.
Okay.
Sorry, there's a lag. I was working on my other computer, but for some reason the microphone came on it, so now I'm like, laptop.
Oh, that's okay. Now let me see here. Let me see here. Hold on. All right. So let's go. Like, what do you have as let's go through the checklist. So did you copy and paste my comments and put them onto a document?
Yes, I have them right here.
Okay, great. So let's go through each one. Let's go through each one that you are maybe confused about or not quite sure what I'm talking about.
I think I finally was able to make the change on the screening, the positive screening, and changing it from where I want my baseline versus my goal. And so I did change that. I wonder if I can share from here. Sorry. Trying to work from 2 different computers. I don't know if it's going to work. Let's see. Can you see this one?
Yes. Good job, screen. Oh, wait, by the way, are you recording this? Did you invite me via YouTube or did you invite me via Google Hangouts?
Hangout.
Okay, because remember I sent you a whole thing saying you needed to do it with YouTube so that you could record it?
Yeah, it's broadcasting to YouTube.
Okay, so yeah, it's sort of a technicality, but that, yeah, so that means it's YouTube. And then when you hit start broadcast, it means it's recording. So is it recording right now?
Yep, it's broadcasting.
Okay, cool. I know. I wish they would call it 2 totally separate things. It's like, well, there's Google Hangouts and Google Meetings. And it's like, great. Thanks for confusing my students more. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, what did you notice?
Okay. So let's see here. It wasn't this one. I changed all the titles. Not that one. Okay, so the goal, so national average is 1 out of 7, which is 14%. And so we want to stay underneath that goal.
Well, you don't want to, because like before you had a pretty high goal on there, like 90% or something, right?
Well, I had it switched. I had goal is 0.
Okay.
And my value baseline is.
Yeah. So why are you screening positive more than the national average, you think?
I think because now I've changed it to low risk, medium risk, and risk.
And what was screening for that before? What was screening?
My goal should,
like before, when you use the more stringent guidelines, what was your baseline?
you're cutting out really bad.
Yeah, I couldn't hear you at all either. Is your computer, have you been having issues with that, or is it on my end? Let me see.
Mine has been okay.
Okay, I just did a student call without issues, so let me see. And no one in the building is streaming anything, so I'm not sure. Let me see here. Okay, can you hear me right now? I'm going to turn off the video.
Yes.
On my end. Okay, so what were you screening positive before you changed the criteria? What was your baseline? Well, not your 0 baseline, but your.
I was getting 0 completely.
Okay, so the criteria you're using now is history of?
Yes.
Okay, so what should your goal be?
To stay underneath the average, the national average.
National average of what?
People who have positive domestic violence.
Domestic violence what? History of.
And see, that's going to be able to find a history.
Huh?
So if current domestic violence right now is 1 out of 7, then how do I find the percentages of history of?
You Google history of domestic violence, national average.
Okay.
1 in 4 women have been the victim of physical violence by an intimate partner in their lifetime. 24.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a pretty quick, it's an easy statistic. So
Okay.
does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's how many should be screening positive for you. The other thing you need to have is proof that a history of domestic violence puts you at increased risk of domestic violence. Is that true? Because look at the title of your run chart. What does the title of your run chart say?
Patients at risk for intimate domestic violence.
Right. So the only way you can say that that's what is represented on this slide is if there's a positive correlation with history of domestic violence and risk for domestic violence.
Everybody's at risk.
Okay, so then your goal should be 100%. So you can't have that. Like everybody's at risk for a car accident, right? But what is
Right.
the risk for everyone driving? So what I'm saying is you can't have as your criteria a history of domestic violence unless that's been shown to put you at increased risk. So this needs to be called increased risk because everybody's at risk for domestic violence, right?
Right.
So change the title to patients at increased risk for domestic violence. And then your goal is going to be what?
The percentage of history.
Mm-hmm. Now, does the history of domestic violence increase your risk?
History. I think it can, because then we go into our discussion tool of knowing a healthy relationship versus an unhealthy relationship.
So, and I'm definitely trying not to annoy you, but I'm just trying to emphasize everything you do has to be backed by data. So it may make common sense to you. It may make common sense to you to be like, well, yeah. Well, what I'm saying is, do you have data? Do you have articles that show that people with a history of domestic violence, because that's what you need to find now, right? Your data was screening negative. You weren't even finding 14% of people, right?
Right.
So you have to make some adaptations now because your predictions about what would happen in your clinic were wrong. You thought you had a gap of identifying women who had domestic violence and you were not finding them. So now that you've changed your criteria so that you don't have to repeat this course, now you need to do some adaptation on every single level. So now you need to change your goal to national average for people with a history of domestic violence. Now you need to do a lit review for and you can ask a librarian for help, does having a history of domestic violence increase your risk? Does that make sense? Because otherwise
Yes.
you need to screen for something else.
Yeah.
Like, do you ask them, do they feel they're at risk?
Yes. And I asked them if they're safe at home.
Okay, good. Because, you know, when I Google 15 high risk factors for domestic abuse, you know, victims' perception of risk of harm. So it's good that you're asking for that, because that there's data to support that, right?
Mhm.
Do they have escalation? Are they pregnant? Are they like, so there's other questions you can ask just to identify risk factors for domestic violence. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So I think you might want to change your screening questionnaire to, are you at risk for domestic violence? Not, have you had a
Okay.
history, or do you have, and there's like tons of handouts there for like, are you at risk for domestic violence? You know, does your partner do this? Does your, do you feel you're at risk? Are you pregnant? Right? Like all of those
Mhm.
things increase your risk. So if you have that, then that's awesome. Then you don't have to really change your B ramp, because your B ramp is helping them identify further things, further resources, and all that to help prevent domestic violence, right?
Right.
Right. So I think what you need to do here is change your questionnaire, which is a test of change. Change it now before you go back to work on Monday.
Yeah.
It's going to be pretty easy, because you can just find an article about like a validated in risk of domestic violence questionnaire, right?
Right.
And go from there.
Okay.
Because I think you'll get a lot more positives and
Mhm.
people that will benefit from. And then what do you do with your shared decision aid? You talk to them about what?
We go through that wheel
Oh yeah, I like
and
that.
like knowing like emotional versus physical. And then I'm trying to come up with like a handout for de-escalation, because a lot of the yeses that I'm getting from partner is if they've insulted them or raised their voice or yelled at them, which is putting them at like a lower risk. So I wanted to come up with like a tool on how to de-escalate arguments, like a handout.
Great. And then of course you have a handout that says who to call if you've been abused, right?
Right.
You definitely have to have that on your handout. Okay, I love this. Okay. Are you feeling a little better about this?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. What's next on the list that seems confusing?
um I fixed my balancing for the time. That was confusing me for a little bit.
Yeah. So yeah. So do you see how it's much more easy to see what your goals are? It's like, okay, this
Yes.
is our baseline and we don't want it to go above here. Perfect. Okay, good. That looks great.
And then I think that's it. So I know here. I added the average scores. I just need to put in the numbers because I didn't have those there. I just had the sums. And then I will, so when I do my next survey, do I just make sure that I have the same amount of numbers of questions?
Let me see here.
So this doesn't change completely.
Can you say that one more time? Is this your B?
So this
Oh, this
is
is C. Okay. Partner.
so this is the screening.
Yeah. I mean, you might not have to change this. Like what's missing here? Maybe, oh, it's sort of like, oh, here, screamed or cursed. Oh goodness. My husband would check for that one. Okay. Partner ever physically hurt, partner ever insulted or talked down, partner ever threatened to harm, screamed, jealous. Yeah, I mean, this is good. Like, was this in your PDSA 1 and you were still screening 0?
Yes, because it wasn't, how do I rephrase this? So according to the original validation tool, it was saying if you scored like over 18, then you are positive for domestic violence, where now I feel like a few of these things should put you at a lower risk.
Yeah. So do you have a tool that helps give a range for like?
So then this is what I did. Okay, so here, let me go back. So down here where it says low risk, 1 to 9.
Oh yeah, but I'm saying like, do you have a data to support that breakdown?
No,
Yeah.
I can find something.
Yeah, exactly. So, and so you need to go and find the data again, just, not to annoy you, but everything has to be backed by data. So,
Right.
like you and I know it makes sense, everybody else knows it makes sense, but we need to have data to show that it's worth capturing these low risk people or the medium risk. And like, and just like find a way, like a tool that does break stuff down. You can call a librarian, like, I forget if they're open on Sundays. I think they might be, but you can call a librarian and just be like, I need to find a domestic violence risk screening tool that breaks it down into different tiers.
Okay.
And do that ASAP, because if you do need to modify this, that's fine. Now, you may not need to totally modify this. Like if the questionnaire that you find is similar, you may just need to ask a few more questions, right? But you can change your tool. That's okay, but you just need to do it by Monday, right? Like, so get on the phone, try to see if a librarian's in today. And if not, do it first thing in the morning on Monday, because Eastern time, they get up really early. By the way, is that kid in your picture? Is that your kid? Who's like, I can read the background? Like when for your Google Hangout picture?
Yeah, that's my third kid.
Oh my gosh, so cute. Okay. Now let's see here. So you're gonna find that. That's looking good. Okay, what else? What other items were you just needing clarity?
And then I don't know, this was my DRAMP. So these are the ones that like did screen for low risk. We made sure that we're putting them in the EMR, that we went over the discussion aid, and then this is the visual aid tool that I want to give, especially for the low risk. And then just like if they're more of a medium risk, then we make sure that we give them the resources. And then if they're high risk, make sure that there's an escape plan.
Gabby, this looks amazing.
I'm trying.
Good work. This looks really, really good. Okay. You're doing great. I just wanted to talk to you because if you weren't, we needed to fix it now. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, okay. Now let me move into here. I'm just going to pull this up. Yeah, no, that's looking good. Why were, so you had been doing the shared decision aid with everyone anyway, even if they were with us. Good. Thank goodness. So you get on that. Good job. Okay.
No, it's included in like the questionnaire and the screening tool so it's all stapled together.
Love it. Okay. Now, let me look. Okay. What's the next thing you had questions about?
I think that's it. I know like my summaries and my field notes were all skewed a little bit from the first week only because I wasn't getting any screening. So, but now I feel like I'm able to put more information in things.
Okay. And let me see here. I'm just looking at our, oh, what about the predictions and stuff like that? Do you understand that?
Yeah, so I need to put the why. And then.
So like under positive, where you say, let me find your other submission. Yeah, like where your positive was initiation of weekly team huddles will increase, like, et cetera, but you have to say why. because
Mm-hmm.
because it will give us more opportunity to provide feedback. Or it won't improve it because people will end up being stressed out about having an extra meeting or something, right? There will be a 25% increase. Well, why? Where'd you get 25% increase? If you can't back it up, then don't say that. You can just say there will be an increase, right?
Right.
And so yeah, same thing for D. Implementing the case management log will increase the follow-up process. You know, you can say, well, what does that mean? So like, yeah, like less patients will be lost to follow-up, right? Because we'll have a method to make sure that we call them, et cetera, et cetera. Are you calling them or who's calling them?
We haven't called anybody yet.
Okay, so you want to make sure that you're doing follow-up calls once a week.
Okay.
So that you can collect data, and so that if nothing's happening, you can change things, not just once a PDSA cycle. So that's the other change I want you to make is do follow-up calls once a week. And you could do it just from patients that screen positive Monday through Wednesday or something, because you're like, it's kind of creepy to call them 2 days later, right? But and do it on Fridays or something like that, or do it for the previous week. Now that you've been having this going, it's a little easier to do weekly. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So make sure that at least once a week you're doing that. And then I'm just trying to see some of the other feedback I gave. Oh yeah, and you changed the titles of your run charts?
Yeah.
Okay. And okay, so can you pull up your measurement worksheet? Yeah, so before you had your baseline at 25% and the goal at 5%, but you were saying, yeah, that was a mistake. You just had them flipped, right? So
yeah, I need to change it.
So your original baseline was probably pretty accurate in terms of history of domestic violence, because it is closer to about 24% or so, right?
Right.
Okay. And you said you changed the titles of your run charts. Don't forget to fix the lined legends so that we can see what each one you fixed. That.
The series 1, 2, and 3. I noticed that.
Yeah, it's really annoying too. I remember spending hours on that. It really annoyed me.
Yeah, I would say the most annoying thing is trying to save it in Google Drive and then going back and forth with it. And I feel like that's been the biggest headache.
Did IT help you with that, or like what happened? Like what could we do to make that easier, just so I could start some feedback right now?
I feel like if it could be an actual Google sheet versus
Ooh,
an Excel sheet.
Yeah. Let me email Diana, Dr. Dallas, about that. Okay, I'm going to send her that email right now while you're pulling that up. Yeah, when you find your measurement worksheet, just go ahead and share the most updated version. All right, is that up and I just can't see it? Oh, there we go. All right, yeah, let me see the top and then we'll kind of slowly work our way down.
Okay. I'm highlighting this one so I remember to change it.
It's okay, go ahead, yeah, smart. Okay, so percent screen was a number of staff at 10. Let me see what I put for your specific feedback. Oh, yeah, so you're going to change your goal. I think the rest of it looked pretty darn good. Let's see. Zero for the tool. Is that good? Yep. I think that looks good now. Okay, perfect. Now go to your aggregate data form. I think I see it right there. We just want to make sure that that's looking really clear again. So subtotal. Okay, so under that column where it says subtotal, you want to put what the total possible, like, let me see. Oh, this is D. Yeah, so you want to put what the total possible score is for each level. So like if they're low, what is the total possible score? If they're medium,
so it would be 3. Okay.
Right. And then if they're high, what's the total possible score? So that the percent is valid no matter what level they're at, right?
Okay.
So, because you don't want to, like, someone with low risk to get poor care scores just because they didn't have an escape plan discussed. So, like, they should get 100% if they received 100% of what they were supposed to get. Okay.
Right.
And then I would put under each of those things, because remember, this just has to be like foolproof. Well, everything is scored for that. So let me see. Okay, so the other thing that needs to happen,
great.
So the follow-up phone call needs to happen for everyone. So that should have like either 3 colors or a comment like has to happen for everyone. Like, do you see what I mean? Like it just needs to be like.
So like I can move it over to between the G and the H.
Well, you can move it to the end because all of them have to have that, right? They're all going to get a follow-up phone call. So at the end, you could make that a green color or something and say for all patients or something like that.
Okay.
Right? And same thing goes for anything else that might be applicable. Because like the people with the medium risk, they're supposed to receive all of the stuff below them plus the list of community resources. So like every single level includes the level below. So just put the, so I kind of see what you're saying by moving it over there because they need to receive everything below.
Yes.
Okay, whatever works for you logically, just make sure it's clear. Just make it clear to someone else looking at this that happens for all patients.
For all patients. Okay.
I could put it just in the column there and just say for all patients.
Okay.
And then, yeah, no, that's great. And, you know, all the patients should receive a list of community resources, even the low risk people. Is there another intervention you could do for the medium risk?
Yeah, I could switch some of these things around.
Like maybe assess at next visit. I don't know. Anyway, just an idea. You don't have to do that, but it was just an idea. Okay, now where was that? That looks good.
I guess I did that as my medium because my list of community resources that I have is like women's shelters and those types of things.
That's great. I think that's fine. Then leave it like that. Leave it like that. That's fine. Okay. No, I love it. Okay. Looking good, Gabby.
Hey, got some research to do.
You're doing this with 3 kids. I don't know how you're doing it with 3 kids. I have 5. What? Oh my gosh. I don't know how you do that. I have 1 kid and no plants. I have a cat.
It's a headache.
Cats, if you don't feed them, you go out and hunt.
Yesterday we built a play set for them, so I've been sending them outside a lot.
Oh. Well, I'm feeling for you. I think this is excellent progress from what you submitted. I think you're going to be doing much better. I think you're going to be more proud of your results because they're going to be important, and you know you're going to be able to show the impact that you made. So I'm actually really excited about these changes you made. Make sure just to find that breakdown of low, medium, or high. You may not need to change your questionnaire at all.
Okay.
Low risk, medium risk, or high risk. Okay.
Okay.
Do you have any more
Sounds
questions
good.
for me?
I don't think so. I think it's getting there.
Okay. Oh, I know what it was.
Yeah.
Learnings versus objectives. So go to your PDSA workbook.
Oh, yeah. It's okay to just write I learned and then.
Yeah, as long as it's based on the data. Like you can't just be like,
Okay.
I learned I'm a really nice person, or I learned that the nurses like this. It's like, oh, I learned that weekly meetings need to be kept efficient because the most stressful factor for the weekly meetings is that providers get stressed about additional time, or the medical assistants feel overwhelmed, right? So yeah, go ahead and pull that up. Like I'm looking at your learnings, like you're saying, telling us what the data shows. This is more applicable. What you put here currently was, or in your submission, was better for the summary section, right? Because the summary section's all about data. Like just regurgitate the data that you saw and give us a sentence about the story. Whereas this is more like not just an observation. So
I guess looking at the example that was there, that's where it's like, okay, what are they actually looking for? And I try to word it almost the same.
And it's probably a bad example. So that's partly why we don't want to give examples, is because then students try to copy the example and they think it's helpful to have an example, but it's actually not. Like, but like I almost think it's more helpful to give examples under each description of the instructions, like versus showing an example of the actual assignment, because then people try to just model it because they're like, oh, this is the optimal one, I'm just going to model it. I think it's more effective actually to just say, here's an example of a learning statement versus an observation statement, and then like because that's what you needed to know. So like let's look at here. So on the second team huddle, one staff member was absent, resulting in a lower team engagement score. A weekly team huddle did not promote communication. So why is that, right? So you can say like, we need to increase more communication during the huddles, right? That's a learning, not an observation. Because like right now you're just saying, oh, it did not promote communication. But what did you learn? Oh, we need to include elements to improve communication. You know, let's look at a different ramp.
Yeah.
So there was a drop of score. Okay, so the learning could be, why did the survey not get provided to patients? Oh, we realized that if the survey wasn't stapled, they didn't get it, right? That's the learning. So yes, that's the kind of stuff that we're talking about.
Okay, so are these things that need to be changed and fixed right now, or do we just change it for the next?
No, just move on to PDSA 2. Okay. Move on to PDSA 2, yeah. And then let me see here. What else here? Right. So with the whole thing being that this, like with the page, with the team engagement, you were saying like, you know, a team member was absent, so there was a lower team engagement score. Is that because you're including, did you mean a lower team process score? Like, why did you feel that someone being absent affected the score? Because the score should be a %. So whether,
right.
So whether 2 people attended or 10 people attended, the score is still calculated as a %. You see what I mean by that statement? Okay.
Yes.
And let me see here. And do never use the same learning under multiple ramps, because you had copied and pasted the observation dates were initially changed. Yeah. You get to pick that for one, and you need to explain why that was helpful.
Okay.
And then be sure to put under each ramp what was run chart learning and what was aggregate data learning, okay? So that it's just clear for us, so that you say, here's something I learned from the run charts, I learned blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
From the aggregate data form, I learned blah, blah, blah. And then go to your summaries. My cat's crying. Oh, you want to go outside? All right. So let's see. Yeah. So here, this is where you put a little bit like, you did a good job putting the data here, right? Now for A and B. So then just add one more sentence that says like, baseline of 17%. So say why, like, what's your take home learning from this ramp? Oh, needed to improve communication elements within the huddles. And then the patient engagement thing. Oh, we discovered our biggest loss of data was due to lack of patients receiving it, and tests of change are going to include stapling it or etc. So do you see what I mean? Just like one sentence that really tells the story of that PDSA ramp.
Okay.
PDSA cycle, like the take-home learning. Now, because this is ideally in total supposed to be 6 sentences by the end of your implementation, you're gonna, as time goes, let go of some of the data you include here. And you're just gonna pick the main things. You're just gonna pick like, oh, the biggest take-home from this is this. You can do one sentence that summarizes, from PDSA 1 to the end of PDSA 2, team engagement scores increased by this much, right? And that summarizes the 2 cycles in one sentence. So you can do little tricks like that. Don't just put a bunch of semicolons. Students try to get away with that. Like they put 5 sentences into one by using semicolons, and that's not appropriate use of semicolons. So just learn like, what was the biggest take home from that PDSA cycle, and what's the biggest take home data from the big picture.
Okay.
Like if your patient engagement's going down, like you need to comment on that. Patient engagement scores dropped, and we're guessing it was because their appointments were lasting 30 minutes longer or something, right? Who knows? So those are just examples. And so C and D are a little bit wordy, so just get better at making those succinct. And don't forget to at least do 1 literature citation for your new tests of change. Okay? So, and that's what the literature is for, not for your current stuff, but for what you're going to change for the next PDSA cycle. Because right now, your literature citations were for your current PDSA 1 things, and what you needed to do is find literature to support the changes. Okay? And, all right. And for the table, yeah, just make them more succinct. Okay. I think that's it. Good. Anything else?
I don't think so.
Okay. Get back to sending your kids outside in the play. Okay, my dear. Well, thanks for showing up today and doing all that hard work. You're doing awesome. Hang in there. I'm really excited because these changes, like your project feels much more cohesive. So I'm excited for you. Okay.
Thank you.
Have a great rest of your weekend.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.